Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Talk of the Town podcast. This is Julie.
And this is JT.
And this week we have on Lane. She's the owner of K9s. This episode was so much fun. We learned so much about dogs and what it takes to kind of train a dog and kind of just some common misconceptions.
Lane has a really cool story about how she learned how to train her own dog and how she utilized that experience to learn how to train other people's dogs.
Yes, this is definitely an episode you are not going to want to miss. So definitely listen to the end to hear some rapid fire questions and just kind of get to know Lane and her business.
If you're listening on Spotify, we would love it if you could leave us a review. And if you're watching us on YouTube, if you could subscribe to our channel and leave us a like, that would be greatly appreciated.
Hope you guys enjoy the episode. See you next week.
Episode. I think I must have twisted it by accident and just didn't check it. Yeah.
Great. It's just Julie. It's like, hello, and you're just like moving your mouth and nothing's happening.
Literally. So tell us a little about yourself. Like, where did you grow up?
Yeah.
Like, kind of how'd you get your start in your career?
So I'm Lane. I'm the owner and head trainer at K9s. And I grew up in Freehold, actually. So like only, I guess, like 30 minutes from here.
Nice.
And then I've always loved dogs. I was like that crazy dog person. Like I just always loved dogs. I had poodles growing up. Like that was like my dog, and obviously kind of changed a little bit, but I just like was the person who would be like, oh, let me walk your dog, I'll play with your dog. Like my first job ever was like horse feeding. Like I was always an animal person. And I was that crazy kid that would like run up to dogs and like not care, which you should not do, or let your kids do. And my mom would always like run and grab me, and like the dogs wouldn't eat me for some weird reason. And then I got my dog, I guess she's 7 now, so like a year into being married, and we like got her from this backyard breeder, which is like just a random person whose 2 dogs ended up having puppies, and like you really shouldn't do that. So we got her from there. She was like $200, purebred German Shepherd, like yeah, so cheap, and like that's unheard of, and you're broke normally when you first get married, and like so we got her and thought like we were doing everything right, but that was like my baby, so I babied her and like just let her get away with everything. And then most dogs will kind of fully mature around like 2.5, 3. It depends on like the breed. So she hit 2 and turned into like a raging psychopath. She is like this scary shepherd that you see in movies where you're like, oh, let me not go into like that junkyard or that house. Like you do not mess with that dog. That was my dog. Like I couldn't walk down the road, nothing. She was just a lunatic.
At the time, were you already like a trainer or
no? I did dental, so yeah. I was like, I did. I had all my licenses, so I dropped out of hygiene school. Actually, I hated it. So I went to like college for it and everything, got accepted, and I just was like, I hate this. And I did it at 17. I did like the Vogue program and stuff.
Nice.
And then I got a job at 17 in dental. So I thought like, oh, that was going to be my life. I'm going to do dental. Dropped out, still got like my other easy licenses. And then I was doing that while I had her. So yeah, I just went to like, I knew she was sweet. She loved our family. She loved like our close friends, but anybody else, it was like, all right, that's fair game. Like you're not supposed to be here. Get out of my house, get off this street. Like, everything just terrible. So I was trying to train her myself. My partner's uncle like was a dog trainer, but it just was not like good. It's like the old school method. So that made her more aggressive. Then like we only did treats, and like she hated that, and it just wasn't like nothing was working for her. And then there was a trainer in our area who like worked with shepherds, worked with police dogs, whatever it was, and I just thought she was like aggressive, mean, and that was it. And he was like, she is scared out of her mind. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, how is a German Shepherd scared? Like, they're supposed to be scary, not the scared dogs. And he was like, no, she's literally petrified of life. Like, she was hiding behind me when we went into the training session. And I'm like, oh, maybe, I guess. And there's like this thing that I use now, and it's called a placemat, and it's just like an elevated dog bed, and that's it. And she took 2 hours to even like sniff it. And I was like, what is wrong with my dog? Like, what have I done to her? And I was like, oh, she really is just scared of everything. And then that's kind of how, like, it spiraled. So I just kept going to training for months and months. And I just wanted to, like, learn more because I love dogs. I just didn't understand them. So then I was like, hey, I want to do, like, more advanced classes, all this stuff. And he was like, no. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, someone wants to learn. And I'm, like, trying to pay you money. Like, just let me. He was like, no, she's good. She's fine. Like, she doesn't need to learn anymore. She's just a good dog now. Like, who cares? And I was like, I care. Like, I want to do more.
What kind of like advanced training was it? Was it just like behavioral, or were you trying to get her to do like tricks and stuff?
Honestly, like just more like I wanted her to have because I hike a lot, so like how we were talking about Acadia, and I wanted her to like understand like, okay, being off leash, she had to recall, come back, still listen, even if she didn't have like that leash directly on her, and like in places where I'm able to take her off leash, and just still like behave, and then like also do fun stuff. Like I didn't just want her to be a good dog outside of the house, because even then, like, kind of why I do what I do and go into people's homes, like, so at home she was still kind of like evil, like she was very like possessive of our house, and so I'm like, well, it still didn't really solve that, so I'm like, okay, she has good behaviors now, but I'm like, the root of the problem still isn't really solved. So I just wanted like more of anything, just like learning, understanding, and he kind of just like plateaued me, and I was like, what the heck? I just want to do more. So then I ended up going up to like upstate New York and learning from a trainer there, and then COVID hit, and I ended up taking like online classes and online schooling for dog training, like just to learn more. And then it kind of just went from there, and then I was like, hey, on Instagram. So I actually started my business from Instagram. Cool. And it was like my own personal one, and I just would like track her progress, because everyone knew I loved my dog. So I would like always post like, oh, you know, today she did this, today she did that, like just to be like, oh, hey, like if you have a dog who's kind of scary, like not the best, whatever, like they can get better, even just like with my friends. So I remember we were walking one day, myself and my partner, and she like was off leash, perfectly focused, and I was like, should I just start training dogs? LOL. And it was like a poll, like just completely a joke, and everyone hit yes, and I was like,
Wow.
I'm like, maybe I'll like just see what happens, kind of thing. And so I was doing it completely for free, like while I was doing dental, and just to see like if I could do it. And I remember the first session ever, I was just like shaking, freaking out. It's like a family friend, and I was just like, oh, like I know what I'm talking about, I swear. And like, she has a business too, so she was like, just breathe, relax, like just think of what you're trying to say. And so it was really good that I started with like people who knew me, that knew I love dogs, who like saw the changes in Kala, and then like I kind of just went from there. And it got so busy, I was like doing it before work, doing it on my lunch break, doing it after work, and then I would go on the weekends, and I just wasn't making enough to like quit my job. But then it was like just this weird limbo kind of thing, and then I just got like a YouTube deal, and it was just like all this weird stuff that happened, and then now that's where I am.
Wow, that's
Now I'm
really
here.
cool.
That's amazing.
It was crazy.
Do you feel like it's a dog owner's due diligence to make sure that they are training their dog? Or do you think all dogs need to be trained? Is it certain breeds, or is it just like a general like overlay of like everyone should be training their dog in some sense?
I think everyone should in some sense, for sure, because like dogs are dogs, and we forget that like dogs are living sentient beings, right? And like we're not dogs. So the way we live, like I even say this to my clients, like, all right, we see a couch or a chair, you know, and we know as long as it's not like a fancy special chair and some like rich house, we can sit on that chair. Where a dog will see like that dog bed I was talking about, and they'll be like, is that the same thing? Like, is that my bed? Like, I don't understand that. So dogs don't like generalize behaviors the same way that human beings do. So for them, we really have to teach them how to like live in a human world appropriately. So even if it's simple things as like sit, lay, walking nicely on a leash, a lot of people will come to me and they'll have like a 4-month-old puppy, and they're like, my puppy hates walking on a leash. And I'm like, well, a dog wasn't made technically to walk on a leash, right? So even something as simple as that, like we don't realize how hard that is for a dog if you really don't teach them. So I think all dogs should have some sort of training, like basic obedience, to really thrive in life. And then say you have like a more guard dog breed or like a herding breed, that dog needs to know like how to live in a human world, because if they think it's their job, just like my dog, they're gonna be super on guard against humans. And even particular breeds like, you know, border collies are always really popular. They're the smartest dog breed like ever. So they need a lot of help and a lot of training and like fun training and even an outlet to potentially herd things to live a happy, healthy, fulfilled life. And then say people are getting like a Cane Corso that originally was an Italian guard dog, like in the mountains, meant to be off by themselves. So because it's so popular now, people kind of forget like that's where they originally came from, and that's in their DNA to be very guarding and possessive of their family, because that's kind of the life they're living right now. So they really need more direction in what they're supposed to be doing in our lives than just like a golden retriever. You know, it's a little bit different. But all dogs should have something to help them live nicely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have other dogs now, or any like cats, anything like that living
Yeah.
with you? Yeah.
So, me and my partner back in 2020, when like the housing market was insane, we sold our house and then never got another one. We were supposed to get a tiny house on wheels, and then it kind of fell through. It was a whole long story. So basically, we share a mother-daughter now with my mom.
Nice.
So I still have Kala. She's gonna be 7 in July. So she's like my primary working dog. So if I'm doing anything, she'll normally come with me to work and like show dogs how to live. And then my mom has 2 dogs. So I trained all of them at this point. There's Jarvis. He's a rescue, and he's 11. He's an American dingo, so he like looks like a little fox. Everybody thinks he's a fox. So he's 11, but he is like my best social dog. So if I have puppies or not really reactive, aggressive dogs, and people want them to like learn how to properly socialize with other dogs and be like have good manners with dogs, I'll bring him because he's very fair in his correction. Like we call him a street rat because he lived on the streets for 3 years before we rescued him. So he loved dogs. When we rescued him, he hated people. He was like petrified. He hid in a corner for 2 weeks. Could not be around people. So he's great with other dogs. And then there's Havoc, and he's a German Shepherd too, but he's a working line. So they're more like really, really crazy, high energy, like super just like ready to blow at any second. But he's really friendly. Like we call him our golden retriever because you meet him and you're like, he looks scary. Everyone's scared of him over Colin. And I'm like, wrong dog. But he's just like looks super intense, and he's like, hi, I'm Havoc. Like loves everyone. He'll just like give you kisses, roll on the floor, like such a doof. And he's just very like, I don't care about you, like to dogs. So he's great for working when like I want a super neutral dog who's just like, I don't care about you.
That's
Nothing.
crazy. I did not realize that you use other dogs to train
Yeah.
a dog. I
Yeah.
just figured like it was you training the dog in some way.
Most people don't, because it's like you think of dog trainers and you like think of a person, right?
Yeah.
So we call them in dog world demo dogs. So they just demo for other dogs. So a dog will always teach a dog what to do better than a human, as long as that dog is like raised really well. So for Jarvis, like I always say there's corrections, right? So like even as people at our jobs, in school, whatever it may be, like we get in trouble sometimes, and it is what it is. And people won't always correct a dog fairly and do something like in the right way, even if we think we are, because we're not dogs. And like dogs are very sensitive to that. You can't just be going around yelling at them, right? So, and like half the time they don't know what we're saying. So a dog, if they're trying to teach them like the right thing to do, and you have a dog that's really well raised and like well social in that way, they're going to teach a dog 1,000 times better than we ever will. Like it's just normal for them.
So kind of walk us through like a typical session if you were to bring like one of your dogs to, I guess there's probably so many scenarios with every dog probably has a different issue, but like in a general sense, like what does a session look like with you?
So I do a 3-week program, and it depends on what it is. So with puppies, I actually only see them once or twice a week for about 4 weeks minimum, because puppies grow so much. So puppies are a little bit different than older dogs, but if I'm doing like more of a session with an older dog, it's a 3-week thing. It can either just be basic obedience or reactivity. So I work with the big scary ones, like the dogs that were my dog. Like that's really my passion. So say I'm doing a reactive dog, which is like generally what I tend to be getting. The first day or two is me just getting to know the dog. So whether they're extremely aggressive, they can't let anyone in the house, they have a really high bite record, which is just like, okay, how many people or dogs they've bitten. It depends on what I do. So if it's a dog with a bite record, I always tell the owner, like whatever your standard procedure is of having someone in the house, that's what you're going to do. And if you don't have a procedure, I'm like, you put your dog on leash, because I try to keep my record of getting bit as low as possible. So that's like the day one, and some dogs won't take treats, some dogs won't play. It all just depends. So I always try to build up my relationship with them from day one, like showing them what they can and can't get away with. So I'll throw treats over to them. If I don't feel safe personally, like putting my hand in their face, that's how a lot of people will get bit in general. So that's like a really big myth, that you should put your hand in a dog's face to have them like know you, because a dog can smell 2 miles away on a really clear day. So they don't need you in their face at all. Like it's kind of really dangerous. So I'll just throw treats at them, then dependent on how reactive they are. And reactivity is just like, it can be anything. It can just be a really friendly dog who's like barking at you and they just don't know what to do, and then they fall on the ground, roll over, play with you, or it can be a dog who is aggressive in a sense and just doesn't know what to do. So then they bark, they lunge, they do bite because they have no other communication skills that they've built up. So once either in that first session or second session, sometimes I'll double leash a dog, so the owner will have a leash and then I'll have one. And then as the dog starts to get more comfortable, then I'll take the leash for myself. And sometimes they will try to bite me, sometimes they won't. It just depends on the dog. Some dog will immediately just like not care and they'll just walk next to me. Some dogs will literally be like, I know my owner just dropped that leash, in a split second they'll kind of try and go after me, and I'm like, okay, fun day. So then that depends too. Some dogs I'll have to muzzle train if they're really like unsafe at that time, and I have to teach them to be okay with the muzzle, so that's a whole nother process. And then it's really building up my positive relationship. Hey, like humans are not going to hurt you, they're not going to hurt your owner, they're not going to ruin your house, so you have to like get them to understand humans aren't bad or dogs aren't bad.
Yeah.
And then you have to teach them all of the skills to live a good life. So a lot of times when I have an extremely reactive dog, they'll have no obedience. So like someone can tell their dog sit 10 times and maybe on the 11th time they'll do it. Maybe. And like and some dogs have nothing at all. They don't know their name. They won't respond to it. They don't know like walking on a leash. They won't come to you. So everyone has such a different baseline of like what I'm going in and doing. But normally within the second week, I'll do that whole placemat, and that's like teaching them to settle in their environment. So I don't ask them for a sit, I don't ask them for a down, I just have them problem solve. So it's like, okay, you can't get off this mat, I'll just have the leash in my hand, maybe I'll sit on a couch, maybe I'll stand next to them depending on like how safe it is. And then I just wait for them to lay down, and there's marker words. So I don't know if either of you guys have like ever had a puppy and done like that clicker training or seen it, anything like that. So sometimes there'll be like a clicker and people use that, and you'll hear like literally click, and then the dog will get off the mat, or the dog will be like done with a behavior. So you use your voice, because not everybody's gonna have a clicker on them all the time. It's not realistic. So once they lay down, you get off that mat, and they're like, oh, cool, like that's what I have to do. And then slowly over time it decreases till, hey, they see the mat, somebody tells them place, that's what I call it. They jump up there, they lay down immediately, they're like, sweet, let's work. Or they're settled, which is like, I'm comfortable in my environment wherever I am. So that could be in the house, outside, whatever. So that's like week 1. And then week 2, I'm teaching them other things, walking nicely, come to me when you're called, whatever it might be. And then week 3 is generally when I'll bring my dogs, because my dogs know that I'm going to keep them safe, but I also need a dog who is going to listen to me or start to listen to their owner, because I don't want to ever put my dogs in danger or another person or myself. I try and keep that down to a minimum, especially working like with the kind of dogs I work with every day. And then week 3 is like, I'll control my dogs. Kala can be very trusted off leash at this point. Like I put her in a down, she'll stay in a down across the road 300 feet away. I don't care. And then I can, I always work with her at first to get her neutral to the environment, which is just like, hey, I don't care where we are. You pay attention to me. I'm going to give you a bunch of rewards, whether that's a toy, a treat, just have fun, like pay attention to mom. That's it. And then once she's comfy in that environment, then I can drop her leash, whatever it is, and go and help the owner if they need it. And then if they're doing great on that session, cool. Handle it yourself, and then I'll kind of walk you through it, guide you through it. And then dependent on the dog, sometimes they'll need a 4th week. Generally, like if it's a lower amount of reactivity, it's only 3 weeks, and then just go from there.
How involved is the owner in all of this? At what stages are they there, not there? Is it necessary that they're kind of all part of it? Because once those 3 weeks are over, it's like, how does the dog still know all of this kind of thing?
So what I do, so like how I don't have a facility, like we're here today together, I feel dogs learn best in their own environment. And in the dog world, honestly, it's more profitable if you have your own facility and people send them to you, because A, that's going to cost more for the person, but then the owner doesn't learn, right? So like just how you said, like, okay, how involved are they? Because how are you going to know that?
I've heard of that. People sending like their puppies to like a facility
a boot
for
camp,
few weeks. And I'm like, how does that work?
Exactly. So even how with Kala, like her issues at home were still her issues at home. Like that didn't go away. So when I started doing all of this, like I was just like, dogs are always going to be worse at home. It's like a kid, like,
Yeah.
oh, the parents said their kid's out and they're like, oh, your kid was wonderful, and the parents are like, what do you mean? Like, they were, seriously? And so it's the same thing with the dog. So every owner is different, obviously, depending on their life, their work schedule. So what I do is I have a daily update form on just like literally Google Drive. So I send it to them, and every single day it's updated about what we did. There's also like a nice little go home packet that you get. So some people want it in the beginning, some people want it in the end. So that has all the skills that I want your dogs to know at the end of the 3 or 4 weeks. And then some people, like one of my worst dogs ever, I could not take him out of the crate for 2 weeks. Like, he would literally, you would like go near the crate and he would like attack the crate to try and bite you through it. And I was like, oh, Al. Like, his name was Al, like a little old man. So his parents were only there 3 times in 4 weeks because the mom is a nurse and the dad is a teacher. So they just could not get home. And like, you know, they always stay after school, make their plans, whatever it was. So they just could not be home. And it was just me and Al, like, building it up.
Oh
And
my God.
yeah, so I would text them every day after our lessons. I would send them videos, like especially when people aren't home, and I'll still check in on them. And now they're having a kid and they said he's great and wonderful, and like they followed through to a T. So like even though they weren't there, they followed everything explicitly. And then like on the last lesson we did a longer one, and it was just everything just thrown at them, and they were just so honed in. And then some people are there for every single session. Like every single session, they do not miss. They make sure they come home from work. It does not matter. And then some people are there like every other day. So dependent on your lifestyle and like the follow through that you're going to have. I even on my phone calls, I always do like intake phone calls and new client phone calls. And I tell them, I'm like, listen, you can send your dog out to a board and train if you want a minimal amount of like work on your end, but even after that you still have to follow through, right? So like they'll be great for your trainer, they'll be great for me, but if you're not doing all those things that I taught you and I taught your dog, it's just, hey, our relationship's the same. I might have all these cool skills, but you're not making me do them. So I'm just going to go back to doing exactly what I was doing before. So everyone's different. It just depends on your follow through. So if you're not there every session and you're just there the first and last one, but you're doing 2 hours a day of training, you know, split up throughout the day, your dog's going to be great. But if you're like, oh, Lane did it today, I don't have to take care of anything. All right, well, then your dog's not going to be good. It is what it is. I don't really know what to tell you.
What are some ways that you can let a dog know that they either did something wrong or they did something good? Like, how do you communicate with them in that way?
Yeah, so there's positive and negative reinforcement. It's kind of like work or school or anything, right? So even for us, like, hey, you did a great job, like with your job or your school, you get, you know, extra candy in school, or you got a promotion at work, whatever it is. So for a dog, like, hey, you did a great job. So that's where like that marker training comes in. You learn about it in psychology. It's like the Pavlov effect. So it's essentially what we're doing with dogs. Like, it was a study done with dogs, but your voice acts as that clicker or that marker. So for me, like any video you watch, you'll hear me say yes, and I'll say like good, and it's always the same tone every single time with those dogs. So they hear me say good, I give them a treat right away, especially in the beginning. So good is like, I don't say stay in my training purely because us as humans will use stay over and over and over and over. So like if you guys hear somebody like stay, and like they're backing up and their dog's still like moving, it's because we didn't teach them it right. So like for me, I say good and I'm standing right, I'm standing right in front of the dog and I give them that treat. So for me, good is like, okay, keep doing what you're doing. I love that. Stay where you are. And then when I say yes and I'll do like a really explosive movement where it's like backwards, forwards, to the side, and dogs learn off of that body movement. So they'll automatically follow you, and I give them that treat. So I'm teaching them those markers, and then no is just no, and I give like a quick pop of their leash, and that's it. So everyone, you'll see people like their dogs won't walk or they're doing something bad, and they constantly will have like tension on their harness or their leash or whatever it is, and that is showing a dog to do the opposite. So they fight against any tension we put them under. Humans do it too. Somebody pushes you, you stay in the same spot, right? Like you don't want to move. So a dog, if you have a constant tension on them, they're going to stay right there. They're literally not going to keep walking with you. They're not going to listen to you. So for me, that no is just quick pop of the harness, pop of the leash, whatever it is, and they're like, oh shoot, I did something wrong. Like let me go and follow whatever you're doing. And that's as simple as that. It's like, and once you show them, like, I'm not screaming at you, I'm not putting all this tension on you. It's just that pop of the leash is so effective to a dog. And people don't realize, like, it's so much better to just pop your leash instead of, like, keeping tension on them, because that's what we're naturally taught as humans. Like, oh, your dog's not doing something, be super tense and, like, try and get them to follow you, or that like completely does the opposite of what you think.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in it. It's kind of crazy. When I'm talking about it to people, I'm like, oh, I guess this is a lot.
Where did your love of dogs stem from? Did you have dogs as a child, or were there dogs like in your life?
So I had poodles growing up my whole life, completely opposite of German Shepherds. So I've genuinely just always been an animal person. I'm really extroverted, so I love talking to people. Like I run another business too, and like I do all the marketing and I talk to everybody. It's like a coffee business, so completely different. It's my partners, but I do love people too, but animals are just so like, I don't know, animals always intrigue me. So I always like wished I could go and like pet a cheetah and just like all this, I just loved animals my whole life. And then growing up, I grew up in Howell, like on the border of Cold Snack. So my neighbors actually had horses. So my first job ever was horse feeding. So I would go over like anytime they were gone, and they had like thoroughbred like race horses, so they would actually go and race the younger horses, and the mom obviously couldn't race anymore, so I would go and take care of her. And I was 12, like I was a little kid, so I would talk to her name was Mama. And so I'd be like, hey Mama, and I would just talk to her and like sit with her, and I just absolutely like always loved animals. And then I wanted to be a veterinarian, and then I looked at how much schooling it was, and I was like, I'm not doing that for making like for getting, doing the same stuff as doctors are doing on animals and making like not even a fraction of that. I just thought it was kind of silly. So yeah, I just always loved them. And I would be like, as soon as I got my license, I would like take my dogs in the car with me. Like I would bring them out. Like my mom was always like, dogs are meant to stay at home and they play in the backyard. And then that was it. So it was very, very different from like how I was raised anyway. But I just always loved them. Like I was just like, they just made me happy. And I would be the person, like I would be at a party and I would talk to everybody, and then once I was done talking to everyone, I would go and like sit with the dog. Like, that was it. And I'm like, I'm happy here, it's fine. So yeah, I just always loved them, but I didn't realize like how little I really knew about dogs, honestly.
Yeah, I know this is kind of off topic of dogs, but going back to the horses, we went and rode horses for the first time. We got like lessons.
Really?
I've never been around horses
Yeah.
before. I don't know if you had.
Like as a kid, but I don't really remember much. Yeah.
I cannot believe how aware horses are and like how smart they are and kind of intimidating.
Yeah.
Like really intimidating, honestly. I don't know if you felt like that, but I kind of felt that way. The fact that like they can kind of react to certain things and you don't really know like what they're like thinking. Yeah, and their temperament and stuff like that. But I just thought that was so interesting
because they look so calm. So it wasn't really like their like power that was so scary, but it was just like they all kind of, well, I guess they all looked a little bit different, but for the most part, like they all pretty much were just standing there and had like pretty like still face. But like, so they all kind of looked the same, but then the person would be like, oh, this one gets really like agitated if you do this, and this one is a little bit more rowdy. So yeah, I feel like they're like a little unpredictable.
They are. And then like, especially because random people are riding them, and then you get like scared, and then like you're like, oh no, do they know I'm scared? And
what's
going
they can
on?
like sense it.
Yeah. And the one time it was so random, like because I travel for training and stuff, and we were up in Canada, and we brought Kala up, and we stayed on a horse farm because it said like, hey, we're dog friendly, whatever. So you would wake up, the horses would right outside your window. It was so cheap too. It was like you were literally staying at the barn. And so I woke up and I was talking to the owner. She was outside because their house was like a little ways down. But she was out and her dogs were out. And then she's just like starts dying laughing in the middle of our conversation. I was like, what did I say? Like, what did I do? It's like super early in the morning. And she's like, your dog's in the pen. And I'm like, what do you mean my dog is in the pen? Like, what, is she going to get kicked in the face? And so there's like this little opening, and she didn't go through it before. And she's always like been around horses, but obviously she's never like jumped into the pen with one. And she was like, oh, they're called cow-loving horses. I feel like she made it up because I never looked it up after, so I could be completely wrong. And she was like, yeah, they're like completely fine with dogs. Don't worry, our dogs do this. So my dog was like herding the birds out of the dog pen, because my dog will like hunt birds. And she was herding them out and just like running around the horses. And I'm like, oh my God, my dog's going to get kicked in the face. Like, it was completely fine. But that was like the craziest thing I've ever seen, because there was just a little hole and she just ran in and was like herding the horses. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess you love them. Like, it was so crazy. Yeah.
I guess going back to the dogs, I always wonder this. I mean, we both grew up with dogs.
Yeah.
We don't have any right now.
Different kinds.
Yeah, different kinds. He grew up with Shih Tzus, and I grew up with a black lab.
Very different. Yeah.
But what are some common things that you see that people do to reinforce bad behaviors? Like, things that come to my mind are like barking at the door, or like table feeding, like feeding the dog at the table, or just like anything like that where you're like, this is kind of, I don't know if it would be considered an easy fix, but like just some things that you can kind of do to not reinforce those bad behaviors.
So, I mean, one of the biggest ones is paw, like, because it's cute and everybody thinks like, oh, let's teach paw to our dog. And like, I feel like I'm the girl that's like coming in and I'm like, everything you know is bad, but like, it's not. But like, so like, it depends on the dog, right? So teaching your dog paw, like, okay, you teach them paw, they put their paw in your hand, you give them a treat every single time. So a lot of dogs you'll see are super like very, very pawsy with their owners. And like if anytime they want something, they'll smack them and they'll be like really demanding. And sometimes like they'll like dig their claws into you and like grab your arm. And that's because you taught them every single time they put their paw on you, you get something. So whether that's a treat, a toy, it doesn't matter. Even if you're not asking for paw, they learned, I put my hand on you, I get what I want. So
I never thought about that.
Exactly. Like nobody does. It's like paw's so cute. It's a great behavior, but like you're literally teaching them something so bad. And then anytime they want it, they'll just smack you. They'll smack you. They'll jump on you eventually if they keep not getting it. And it's just like, it's cute, but it is one of the worst behaviors ever. Like I taught Kala that obviously before I knew anything. And especially when she's working, I bring her everywhere and people, I'll say like, you can give my dog a treat. You cannot pet my dog because she is working. But if I release her to go work with you, you can work with her. First thing everyone asks, paw, and she will smack them. And I'm like, like I haven't done it with her in years, like max, like minimum 5 years. And she will still to this day, somebody says like paw, she will smack them right away. I'm like, no, why did you? I'm not going to yell at somebody. They don't know. But I'm just like, it won't leave them. Like, because it's so reinforced as that behavior. They're like, sweet, let me just keep doing it. Like, whatever. But yeah, that's one of the worst ones. And then jumping, because a dog will jump on you to like get whatever they want, doesn't matter how big or small they are. And sometimes jumping can turn into like reactivity or aggression, and some dogs will like nip at your face, or it's just a demanding behavior. And if you have a dog that jumps on you, most people will back up, and that actually reinforces it because you are leaving that space, so you're inviting them to come back into it. So when a dog is jumping on you, you actually want to go forward into their space because it's like, hey, that's not allowed, so let me kind of invade your room. And then they're like, oh wait, like I can't do that, because you're just showing them movement. We say movement is motivating in the dog world, so actually going forward into that area will show them like, hey, you can't do that. So those are like two big ones, the jumping on you and paw.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What do you have any thoughts on like dogs and cats? Like I feel like I have questions on it, but I have like so many. Just like, I guess like, do you recommend that people don't get certain breeds if they have cats, or do you have any thoughts on just if you already have cats or you already have dogs, like getting the other?
So every breed is different. I think like that's like a really good question. So it's funny, my one friend Autumn, she's a dog trainer, and she we even talk about this. We did a podcast together and we like go in depth into it, and she asked me, she was like, hey, you know, like I have 3 cats, do you think I should get an Akita? And I was like, Autumn, you are a dog trainer too, but she like focused primarily on nutrition. And I was like, no, I don't think you should get an Akita. Like,
what kind of dog is that?
It is a Japanese like massive dog.
Oh,
they're
okay.
huge.
Are
They're
they,
not
like,
very
aggressive,
common.
or?
Yeah, they tend to be a little bit more guardy and on the aggressive end, and they like hunt small things. So she did get the Akita, and she is a trainer, and she has to keep them completely separate.
Wow.
Because no matter how much she worked with him, it just did not click. Like, I cannot hunt this thing. And it just, and some things you just cannot simply train out of a dog. Where I think if you have a more mellow dog, like if you have a dog that was raised with cats, if they're not as intense of a breed, like it really does depend on what breed they are. So like, say you have a lab, right? And you raise your lab with cats, generally they're going to be completely fine with them and not have any issue. Like you raise them together or whatever, or you have just a very chill dog and you could bring a cat into the home, and as long as you're integrating it properly, like even having cats together, like you can't have that kitten in the same room as a cat for a few weeks, right? Like you slowly have them get used to each other's scent, whether it's through the door or whatever it might be, and then you slowly bring them together. And even sometimes those cats might never get along and they'll just avoid each other completely. So if you have a very like high prey drive, which is just any kind of hunting, and even if you don't have like a hunting breed, they could just have a really high drive for anything. Like a dog can learn that from another dog in the house. So generally, if you have a really chill, happy-go-lucky, like not really caring about most things kind of dog, it's not going to matter. But if you have that high prey drive kind of dog that's like bred to hunt smaller animals, like might be a little dangerous on that end. Or like you can keep them on the leash for, you know, days and even weeks inside while the cat's around, and like anytime it ignores the cat or anytime it has like a positive behavior towards the cat, you give it a treat or you pet them or whatever, you could maybe get them out of it. But just like my friend who has all the training experience in the world still got it because she kind of wanted, like, she really just wanted that breed. Her and her partner wanted it, and it just, she just has to keep them separate. It's so dependent on the dog too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to know more about how you use your dog to train other dogs.
Yeah.
Is it like you are making your dog do something and then the other dog's like watching, or they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or...
So it's like a very weird concept, right? So, Kala now at this point, with like 5 years of training having gone into her, she's very neutral, which is what you actually want. So in dog world, like in human world, you hear socialization. It's like us talking, us going out, you know, going to dinner, going to a party or whatever it is, going to the movies. We are socializing with someone. Where in dog world, socialization's kind of like the opposite concept. It's, you really want your dog to be neutral in any environment. So like, especially I work with a lot of canine handlers and trainers, how they even figure out that a dog is neutral is they have specific breeders, specific puppies, and they'll actually test their dog on different surfaces. So they'll bring them to like a Home Depot, test them in the shed, test them inside the store, test them on metal, and you want a really, really confident dog. So like with Kala, she's very neutral to every environment at this point. So I bring her out, I train her for 2 seconds, like literally 2 to 3 minutes before I get the other dog out, just to be like, hey, you're focusing on me. And then if I have a very reactive, barking, lunging dog who kind of freaks out, like obviously you don't know when a dog's going to be walking or not, especially in the neighborhood when I'm training. So I will always bring her like that 3rd week, right? And so I'll just have the owner handle them by themselves initially. So I want to see like, okay, how have your handling skills developed? So we'll call like somebody who's holding a dog and their leash a handler. So like if you're working with your dog, you're your dog's handler, where even though I'm a trainer, if I'm working with your dog at that moment, I'm like their handler, right? So I'll be working with my dog, they're handling theirs, and I see how far away or how close can I get to the dog without them reacting. Because some dogs, it'll be like 300 feet down the road and they're freaking out, barking, lunging, and I'm like, all right, we gotta get this down to a minimum. So that's what we call like threshold. So what is their threshold? What is that distance before I get a reaction from them? So then once I figure that out and I see that Kala is nice and calm in that environment, that's when I will drop their leash, and if Kala's leash, and if that owner needs help, I will go over to the owner. If I see they're kind of starting to understand it, I will kind of stay with Kala, because what happens is when one dog barks, generally another dog will start barking. And then, okay, I'm a reactive dog, I feel insecure, I'm scared of whatever's going on, and then that other dog is now barking and their owner doesn't control them. Okay, all dog owners and dogs are bad, right? Like in a dog head, like that's kind of what's going on. So if I keep barking, that dog eventually goes away. So that behavior is reinforced, because people are always generally going to leave if they see even a lab, a golden retriever, barking, lunging, screaming their head off. Generally. It doesn't always happen. Some people will be like, my dog's friendly, and keep bringing their dog towards yours. It happens all the time. So then once I see what's going on, then as long as I know Kala is now comfortable in her environment, so you can tell by like their ears, their eyes, are their pupils dilated, how their tail is moving, I can tell how calm my dog is or not. So once I know that Kala is nice and chill in that environment, I can drop her leash and I know she's not going to move. So then I'll go over, take that dog, and I slowly start working them closer to her. So I figure out that threshold, I go further back than it, and then I get them refocused on me, whether that's treats, toys, or praise, because every dog is different, and it depends on the dog what is going to be like the most motivating to them. So some dogs you can just say, oh, you're a good boy. And they're like, yes. And like, this is the best day of my life. So I'll praise them when they are being good, when they are focused in on me. And then as soon as they start kind of like, oh, there's that dog again, I want to freak out, I turn into or away from them, and I say their name, whatever it is. Like the dog I'm working with right now, his name's Chance. So I'll just be like, Chance, and I'll keep walking the other way. As soon as he gives me attention, he gets whatever reward it is. And we slowly start going closer and closer and closer. And my goal is to always be able to walk that dog on whatever side they heel on, and then walk Kala on the opposite side. So Kala knows how to walk on the right and left. And the most amazing thing about her, I did this with a poodle owner, and they had two like really, really reactive dogs. And they're it's called litter mate syndrome. So they started like getting aggressive towards each other and like other dogs and just freaking out. Wow. So Kala generally will not disobey like a command ever at this point. It's pretty rare. She's still a dog, so it's gonna happen obviously. But she was laying down, and I was like, oh, you know what? I think she's ready to walk next to her. And I was just like, Kala left, because I try to have different commands for like my dog than the dogs I'm working, and she would not budge. And I was like, ew, what are you doing? This is embarrassing. And she would not budge. And I was like, Cal left. And she like started coming to me, but really slow. And as soon as she started walking, that dog lost its mind. And I was just like, and so dogs, how I was saying, like a dog will train another dog. She was like, Ma, she's not ready, like, for me to do this. And I like completely went against it. And I was like, crap. And so I was like, call it down. And like, because the dog like literally was trying to go bite her. So I told her to down, and then I had the owner take the dog again. And he was like, did she just do that? Because like she knew. I'm like, yeah. And I'm an idiot and didn't listen to my dog. And like, she was like, no, she can't do this yet. So my goal is to always like have the dogs walk with each other. And now I kind of don't go against when Kala doesn't want to listen in that aspect, because she's like, hey, no, Ma, they can't do this yet. So she's like a very, very, very great dog for that. And then when they are ready, she'll immediately like, if you watch anything that I post, like she's always like ready to work, super excited, like jumps in the car, like she is ready, and like she always knows what to do. Yeah. So even little things like that, like she'll kind of tell me like, nah, they can't do this yet. Like chill, Ma. And so then like as I see she's getting more comfy, and she'll listen every time like they're ready, I'll put her into a left, or like I'll already have her.
Okay. And
I'll start walking next to the owner. And so even if a dog is walking behind another dog, if they keep looking behind their back, they're like kind of lunging backwards. All right, that dog still isn't ready. If they're just like focused on their owner, doing really great, I'll kind of come up, and it's called like pack walking. So I'll come up, and like the owner will be right here, and then I'll be right here, and I'll have Kala on my right side, and I'll just take the leash from the owner, and I just start walking with them. And the dog will be like, huh. And they'll look up at me, and then they'll look at Kala. And then if they're okay and confident, they'll be like, all right. And they'll just keep going. And then like, so she builds them up of like, hey, not every dog is scary. Not every dog is out to get you. I'm calm. You're calm. Like, we're good. And you don't have to do that. So like her calmness now in training, like I couldn't do that before. She couldn't see a dog or a person miles away. Like she would try and drag me down the road to get them out. So like, as long as it's building up another dog, they start to realize like, okay, like, not everything is out to get me. Not every person, not every dog. I don't have to hunt every animal on the street. Like, and it just builds their confidence having a dog be like, it's fine, dude. Like, you're good. Don't worry about it. And then it just, so she's like really great in that aspect of like, okay, she's great with fearful, aggressive dogs because she's been there, you know? Like, so she's just like, hey, you're good. Don't worry about it. So it was like the funniest thing in the world. She used to be scared of boxes. Like, and you know, you get plenty of boxes all the time. She's like 90 pounds. She's a big girl. And like she would run as soon as we took a box in the house. So now anything she sees that like she used to be scared of, she'll touch. She'll put her front two paws on it, or she'll jump onto it and place it. So like little things like that, I try and teach like every dog that I'm training. So they'll see her do it too. And we'll like go to a park, or they live in like a neighborhood that has a lot of benches. So I'll place Kala on something like, and a lot of dogs won't do it, and they'll see her do it and they're like, oh, okay. And they'll jump on it too. Yeah. So like it just builds them up, having a really confident dog do something in front of them and be like, it's all good, dude. Like, don't worry about it. And then, yeah, so she really like trains dogs more than I do in just like one session, like compared to 3 weeks. It's kind of crazy to think about.
So cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
What age do you like to start seeing dogs, or like, what's your like client base looking like? Is it usually older dogs? Is it middle-aged dogs? Is it like puppies? Like what's kind of the guideline as far as like training your dog?
Yeah. So I always say like For me, it's really hard because I'm very much a person of like, I don't want to take your money. And like, I get it. Like, money is important. It's hard to make. We're in New Jersey. Like, we're in one of the most expensive states in the US. So I always say, like, for me, that's why I do the puppy program differently, because dogs are changing weekly when they're that young. Like, you know, they have toddler phase, they have teenager, adolescent. Like, they go through all of that just a little bit differently. So like, even with my puppy program, I'm not going to do a full 3-week Monday through Thursday, like hardcore intense stuff, because you're going to have so many questions like every week. They're going to go through the regressions. They're just going to be different like every week with them. So with my puppy program, I see you once a week for, like I said, minimum of 4 weeks. And then some people just keep doing it. Okay. And some people, until they get past like that teething and 6-month regression phase, they'll just keep seeing me. So like, it's always the sooner the better, but like little things you can do at home. Like I have a puppy guide that you can just buy and try and do it on your own, where some people are like, no, I need that guidance. I need that structure. 'Cause it's just like, I always say, you know, dogs aren't humans, right? Yeah. But like, some aspects of how dogs learn are very similar to like kids and how we learn. So like, you're not gonna wait. I don't have kids yet, but all my friends do. And like, so, you know, you kind of like get kids in an aspect. Yeah. So like, you don't wait until your kid is 1.5, 2 to start talking to them. Like the day you bring them home, you know, they're in your belly, whatever, you're talking to that kid. So it's even the same with dogs. Like, you shouldn't wait until they're 2 and they're fully adults in a dog world to start teaching them things, because then they're going to have all these bad behaviors that you built up. Like, okay, puppies are cute when they jump on you, but it's not cute when you have a 100-pound dog jumping on you. But like, when they were little, that was totally fine. And so they're like, oh, why am I getting in trouble for that now that I'm 2? But I've done this my whole life. So like, even if you don't hire a trainer, it's so important to start building all those foundations in at a young age, instead of waiting to build all this bad stuff up. And then you have a dog that, you know, jumps up on your 90-year-old grandma and knocks her over, and you're like, oh my God, what do I do? Because that's always when I get called, like when someone gets hurt. So I always say, start the sooner. Like, it's so much better if you start younger, because then you don't have to worry about all these bad things starting. Like, yeah, sometimes it's like nature versus nurture. They're together in an aspect with a dog. But like, if you start younger and you're trying your hardest and you're trying to do all these things, and you did research on the breed and you didn't get it because it's just cute and fluffy, like you're going to have a better start than waiting till you have all these problems and then hiring me, which is like, it's more work for me and for you, because now you have to completely relearn everything you've done for 6 months, a year, or 2 years, and then you're gonna be like, what the heck did I do? What am I doing? Exactly. And now I have to redo everything, and I have to reset my relationship with my dog. But generally, because of my start, and a lot of people who do follow me like know that, I will get the dogs who, okay, they've bitten X amount of people, they're really starting to show bad behavior, they're starting to possess people, and generally that will start around like 2.5, because that's when they start to hit adulthood. And they're like, all right, I know who I am. I know what I'm scared of. I know what works to get people or dogs away. So I'm going to keep doing that until like it gets me what I want. And so that's normally when I end up seeing dogs, is like when all the bad stuff starts. But
that's nice that there's like hope, that even if the dog was kind of taught bad habits, that there's still hope for them to like become like a really good dog. Also, do you feel like dogs like to be trained?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like a weird thing to ask,
do.
but like, do they prefer like consistency in that sense, where like they kind of like when someone's kind of guiding them?
And it's even like us, like it's funny, like I say like I'm kind of controlled chaos, like it's like a joke with all my friends, like they always say like I'm just off on side quests, like I never have like a main quest of life, like I'm just off doing something weird. But even us, like we always, no matter how chaotic you are, no matter like if you're super type A or what, there's always some sort of structure, like whether it's in your head or with your job or whatever it might be. So dogs, they do love to work, and every breed is different. So like, even say you have a lab, like those are retrieving dogs. Like you want to give a dog some aspect to have their natural like outlets fulfilled. So even for Kala, like you know, she's a shepherd. They're guardy dogs. They're actually technically herding dogs, but they are also guard dogs. They're kind of like this weird blend. And so if I do feel unsafe, I tell her to break and I let her go in front of me, and I kind of just let her be really intimidating. Or even with like certain toys, I will, like, if we're playing, I'll let her guard that toy and have that toy. But then as soon as I say like her command to like drop something is out, as soon as I say out, it's like, okay, let me listen to mom. So it's like dogs always kind of need some sort of outlet, and then that's where, you know, your training comes in. So like
Yeah.
a lot of labs will do like dock diving, and they'll like they literally jump into a pool and like they get a little toy and then they go back, and that's like an actual competition and stuff that like can be done with your dog. So there's so many like different outlets besides just like, oh, I'll bring my dog to a dog park or taking my dog on a walk. Like dogs love to be shown what to do because like I said, at the end of the day, they're not living in dog world. Like they're in human world. So they need that guidance and they need that help to like live a really happy, fulfilled life. And like that's why I do what I do. Like I want dogs to be just as happy as a human, because when your dog becomes a burden, that's not fun anymore. Like your whole purpose was to have a companion and like enjoy your life with. So then it kind of sucks when you're miserable with them.
So we kind of want to do some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
We did not send these to you.
Okay.
We love doing them, just kind of like whatever comes to mind kind of thing. Do you want to read them or you want me to read them?
Yeah, you can read them.
Okay. I'm ready.
Alrighty. So the first one is, can you teach an old dog new tricks?
Yes, 100%.
I guess you kind of answered that one. Favorite breed and why?
I have so many. I have so many. I say in my dream life, my ideal world, I would have a ranch with a bunch of acres. I would have a German Shepherd, a Lab, a Golden Retriever, a Malinois. Like 4 specific dogs that are all very different, but that would be ideal for me.
Very cool. We asked this to all of our guests: pork roll or Taylor ham?
Vegetarian.
I had a feeling. As soon as I saw this one, I was like, I have.
But it's because I can't actually digest meat since I was born. Yeah, I told you I have a weird life. It runs in my family. My mom can't, and 2 of my great uncles can't, and my sister now apparently. Yeah, so it's not just like I just can't eat it.
We're meant to work with animals.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, Puppy Bowl or the Westminster Dog Show?
Puppy Bowl, so much fun.
Best movie about a dog?
Oh, I Am Legend. It's so sad, but he loved his
yeah.
dog
So
so
sad.
much, and that's like part of why I got a German Shepherd,
Oh my God,
because
I
she was so
sobbed.
Really?
yeah.
Oh my
I can't
gosh.
watch any other movie where a dog dies. I have not watched any of them. Like I refuse.
Walks with leashes or without?
In New Jersey with leashes. If you are hiking somewhere that it's allowed, without, 100%.
Cool. All right, small, medium, or large dogs?
I'm a large dog girl.
Same. Are you pro or anti-dressing your dog?
Ooh, it depends. I have put my dog in like a Barbie hat when the Barbie movie came out, but I don't do it all the time.
What is the coolest trick you've ever taught a dog?
I like to play dead. It's not that cool, but I think
I
it's
don't understand
fun.
how they figure that one out.
It's 3 steps. You have to teach them to down, then you flip the treat, and you have to teach them to like, well, first they have to know how to down. So it's
Okay.
like doing the down, then flipping the treat, and then making them put their head on the ground. So Kala, I say bang bang, but she's so like, she doesn't want to go all the way down because she wants the treat, so her head will be like halfway up. I'm like, you're so lazy.
That's a good one. Okay, and the last one is, what is your biggest goal for the year?
Ooh, for the year. Okay, so the craziest thing is it has nothing to do with my business. It's like so my partner has the coffee roasting business.
Cool.
So I've really been like focusing on that, honestly. So like I want to help build his up as much as possible since I'm kind of in
Nice.
charge of everything. So it's nice that like I have a name in the community and I love like my community and the people I'm
helpful.
around. So I honestly have been like having a lot of fun growing that and doing events for that because I like to talk. I don't shut up. So that has been my biggest goal of like growing his business. And eventually, I mean, this is kind of like a 5-year thing is we want to have like a sprinter van and travel the country and like do coffee events, but also train dogs.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we want to like kind of do both. So I'll have all my dog gear and he has a full coffee cart setup. And then like we want to be able to like serve coffee and then, you know, be in a parking lot or a national park and like have a whole dog training session. So
Really cool.
yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like a
fun
weird
plan.
flex, but it's
That's
fun.
like such a nice freedom of owning your own business. You can literally do whatever you want.
exactly.
And that's
which
cool.
has been enjoyable. So it's
Very
been cool.
cool.
Yeah.
That's a great goal.
Thanks.
Where can everyone find you? So like Instagram, YouTube,
Yeah.
all of that,
Yeah.
website.
If you want to shout out the coffee shop too.
Yeah,
thanks.
everything.
Yeah.
Lay it all out there.
So I'm Kalas K9s on everything, but it's Kalas and then the letter K and the number 9 and S because I want it to be different and I liked how it was K with another K. So I am on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. If you want to hire me for dog training, you can find me on Google. pretty much any service you'll find me on. And then the coffee business is Tohu Bohu Coffee. So it means chaos, and we want you to find the calm in the chaos of your day with a great cup of coffee.
Cool. Where is that?
So we actually don't have a storefront right now. Right now, we are primarily focusing on events. So we have like Popcorn Park Zoo. It's down in Forked River. So they have lions, tigers, and beers. And that's like a 21 plus thing, but it's all focused on like local distilleries and breweries, and for any DDs they'll have coffee and hot chocolate from us, but it's at the zoo, so it's super cool, and they're actually a rescue, so they're not just a zoo that's like a zoo, right? Like they're actually taking animals from people who have like tigers and they shouldn't, or whatever it might be, and they try and give them like the best home. So all the money is going towards that. So we have that event. We do like weddings and fun stuff like that too, and then sometimes like obviously if it's a dog thing, we'll have my dog there. So yeah, we have that cart and we just do all the events, and then we have
That's so cool.
yeah, it's really fun. I've been having a lot of fun doing it and just like enjoying it, and we have Sail Fest. That's a really big thing down in Toms River. It's been going on for like 32 years. I could be wrong. But we have that in September, and that's like over 15,000 people.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
That's going to be our biggest one so far, but
Oh my
that's in
gosh.
September. Yeah. So our goal is, because we roast all the beans ourselves too.
Very cool.
So we roast it. We have like all of our insurance and like all that stuff, the legal stuff that you have to have. That's kind of sucks. But so we roast everything. It's all organic. So we source all the beans and we roast it ourselves, and then we make everything. So everything's organic. We kind of source everything on our own. Even like the hot chocolate we'll do like a dirty hot chocolate, but there's no added sugar. So like we kind of try and make everything as like healthy as possible, and make sure like we're supporting small farms. So like even our guy who gives us the green beans is straight out of Wall. So we try and keep everything
Wow, cool.
like
Very
local and just
nice.
supporting everybody and supporting local too. So
Cool.
yeah, it's been crazy ride. We're just building up both companies and doing all this and just
Very
going
cool.
insane. I guess.
Awesome. Well, best of luck to you.
Thanks.
That's great.
Yeah.
We're so glad like you came on and
Yeah.
shared your story.
Thanks for having me. I would like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I was just like, let me reach out
Yeah.
to them, because I just like talking to people. I'm just like, it could
Yeah.
be fun, and I like, it was like a slower day because I'm going away this week, and just like I have a content week every month to like just pump out content, have it saved, because I have like a few deals with companies, so I'll do that. I'll make all of their content. I'll make my own content. I'll do Tohu Bohu content, and just like, yeah, so I'm going away.